So today's episode of Teammate Talks, we're having a discussion titled To Be or Not to Be. But it's going to be towards the end before that title starts to make a little bit of sense. What we're really talking about here is coordination. Coordination is about working together. We all think of balance, getting our hands and feet to work together. Some of us take it a step farther and think of coordination in terms of getting our brain and body to work together. That's very, very important for mental health. And then there's also the idea of coordinating in relationships, right? With our family, with our coworkers, with our neighbors, with people who see differently than us. There's lots of different levels of coordination. Now, the opposite of coordination is obviously going to be conflict. Conflict is when things are not working together but resisting each other. Now, since we're in martial arts school, I'm going to talk about physical first, right? When you get into the idea of conflict, you think the whole point is about resisting. This is something we see in beginners constantly. Beginners always trying to resist a punch being thrown at them, resist being pushed, resist doing these things. But one of the highest echelons of most martial arts styles, considered a level of mastery, is the ability to not resist and fight against your opponent, but to rather work with their movements to create the best possible outcome for yourself. Much the same way you've probably heard for life advice, right? When life gives you resistance, it's better to use what it gives you to create a better situation than it is to resist in it directly. So we talk about this when people go to pushes, when people go to punches, and things along those lines. It's a lot easier to redirect that energy and keep it moving the same direction to throw somebody off balance than it is to resist that energy directly. I'm a small guy. I'm not going to just resist some 200-pound guy's punch, but I will certainly have no fear of redirecting it and using that to throw off their balance. Yes. And that's kind of the upper echelon. So a lot of people think of what we do in martial arts as a concept of conflict. But actually, at the center of mastery of what we do is coordination, not conflict. It's one of the highest forms of martial arts that you can get involved with, is learning to coordinate with your opponent's movements rather than against them. Now, the thing about this is this works in psychological warfare as well, right? If you have one of those people that likes to spread rumors about you, if there's someone out there that's playing those kind of mind games with you or with the people that you associate with and things along those lines, people that do that expect you to resist. And the second that you resist, they're going to call your resistance proof of what they've been saying. Now, I understand when you've done something wrong, resistance is the first natural instinct. But if we can learn to move around that and instead work with the rumors, work with the things they are saying, and redirect them back to what the truth is, then you're going to have a far easier time in psychological warfare than you would by just resisting and screaming no and screaming the opposite. This is actually taught in political sciences in college. If you take a political sciences class in college or university, they're going to teach the concept of taking attacks your opponent throws at you, and instead of resisting them directly, redirecting them to swing them back around and put the attention back on the other person. And this is, again, a form of coordination. It's using coordination to end conflict. And it's a very difficult concept to grasp for a lot of people, but it's really, really important. So it works in physical warfare, works in psychological warfare.
Really, we do the same thing to keep kids on track on a task.
We do.
Right? So instead of saying, hey, stop what you're doing, get back to what you're supposed to be doing.
Which is going to make them think about the thing they're not supposed to be doing and continue to do the thing they're not supposed to be doing.
100%. We find a way to redirect them back towards what we want them to be doing instead. Like, oh, hey, that is really, really cool. Now let's see how cool it is when we can do this.
Right.
And get their attention drawn back where it needs to be. And
right. That's using coordination as a teaching tool. So a lot of people don't realize that coordination can be used in so many different ways. You know, most of us just think of it as two things working together. Oh, that sounds simple. But have you ever thought about how that's applied, right? It can be applied in so many complex ways and in so many different situations that it's really quite amazing what can come out of it. So the next thing I was going to get into, unless you had something else to add right here.
No, sir.
The next thing I was going to get into is one of the biggest walls, I guess, I think is a good way to put it. One of the biggest walls between coordination and conflict is ego. One of the things that turns coordination into conflict is ego, the sense that I want to be right. I want to be the best, right? And if we get too locked into that sense, right, that I want to be right, then we will tend to forego coordination and instead go with conflict. Now, it's okay to want to be right, and if you know you're right, you know you're right, but you can use a coordination style approach to bring things back around by explaining your side rather than causing conflict. The thing you have to ask yourself in these situations is my desire to be right overshadowing my desire to find the best solution? And I think a lot of people run into that when they get into arguments with their family, their spouse, their coworkers, and things like that, is that you end up with one or both or more than one person who has a much greater desire to be right because they want to get the fame for being right. They want to get the notoriety for being right, that they don't give any credence or very much thought to anyone else's ideas except in the realm of trying to put them down, rather than actually looking at, hey, objectively, what would be the best solution, right? Now, me and Miss Rose, we go through this a lot, right? There'll be times I have an idea about something, I express my idea. She has a different idea, she expresses her idea. And it starts off a little bit, usually with each of us trying to defend our own idea, until one of us finally goes, you know what, I can see where this other idea, or if we blend these two ideas, now let's look at the outcomes. And I don't think of it as arguments when it's us, because honestly, it's not usually arguments. What we usually do is take the two different ideas and we follow them in a mental path to fruition, right? We imagine the fruition. What are the pros? What are the cons? Now let's take this idea. What are the pros? What are the cons? Now, each of these ideas, how can we minimize the cons and the pros? How can we play the ideas off against each other? And that's coordination. Now, sometimes it can appear to others like we're arguing, and in all reality, we're not. We're just rolling through different possibilities of what can happen. It almost always ends with one of us going, you know what? This is the idea. This is the one, and we'll both know it when we come to it. Be like, this is the best option. This is really the one. And the thing is I do this with myself all the time too. I have these little conversations in my head between thinking three different things might be really good ideas, but I try to compare those three things and walk through them. And at first, to anyone from the outside, it may appear that I'm arguing with myself, but in all reality, what I'm doing is I'm trying to coordinate the possibilities between these three ideas to figure out what's actually going to work the best, right?
And so what all of this boils down to is being solution-oriented rather than
ego-oriented or pride-oriented or problem-oriented. The key here is when you approach any problem, you have to remember what we talked about in another Teammate Talks episode. There is no right. There is no such thing as right. There's only better ways, worse ways, and occasionally you could say wrong ways. But there's never a right way. Right? There's lots and lots of different options, and then once you take that option and make a decision, you can never know what the other options would have planned out, right? So you can't look back at that. You've got to just roll with it. Now, so you take that decision and something goes wrong, right? You realize you can't be like, oh, I'm going to stick with this because I have to be right. That's how businesses fail. When the person running the business makes a decision, they want to be right, they can see all the red flags of how that decision was wrong, but they keep trying to make it right, even though it was wrong, instead of just going 3 weeks later going, you know what? I was wrong about this idea.
Hey team, let's get back together and
let's backtrack and choose a different option and move forward. We had to do that recently on a couple of different things. We had to go, you know what? This idea we had is not working out. We need to back up. And you know, it happens. It happens. But the key is remembering there is no right. Now, of course, that requires humility. Coordination requires humility. It requires prioritizing the solution over prioritizing me being the one to give the solution. So prioritizing the solution over pride is really, really important. And that requires humility. It requires understanding that you are not the be-all and end-all of the situation. You are just another piece that's throwing in its piece of information, and just as everyone else is, and maybe you are right. Maybe you do have the best idea. If it really is the best idea, then you shouldn't have to argue it. You can explain it on its merits, and everyone else will see it's the best idea as well. I've done this with staff. You know, there's been times I've approached and been like, hey, I want y'all's opinion on this idea, but I'll throw the idea out there. I'll tell you why I think it's a great idea, and then everyone's just like, you know what? No, like I don't have another opinion on this idea. I think you're right. I think it's a good idea. And you know, you can put it out there on its merits rather than trying to die by the idea just because you want to be right. And this requires humility. Humility does not mean putting yourself down. A lot of people think of it that way. Humility does not mean thinking of yourself as less than anyone else. Humility is simply not thinking of yourself as more than anyone else.
Yeah.
There's a fine line there, right?
When it comes to the team, I need my team that I work with to be able to pick up where I might be lacking one day. Or to, if something happens, to be able to go, hey, why don't you step to the side? I've got this. And I need us to be coordinated without going, well, I have to be the one that takes care of all of that, because that's honestly the road to burnout.
Yeah, and you can be you can be proud and be humble. Like, I can be proud of the fact that I am an above average problem solver, and that mostly comes down to not any particular special mental ability. It mostly comes down to my ability to stick to a problem longer than most would. And just keep mulling it over more than most would, right? And I can be proud of that, but I can also be humble enough to recognize when this person over here has a better idea to solve the problem than I've come up with yet, right? Because I can recognize that maybe eventually I would have came up with that solution, but I can also recognize that it's a lot cooler that someone else came up with it sooner, so I don't have to spend the next 3 hours working on it, right?
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that. And like I say, you can be proud and be humble. So this is about coordination. So to be or not to be is the question about, would you rather be right when you know that there's no such thing as right? Would you rather be right, or would you rather be happy and find the best solution, right? Thank you for the comment, Miss Chantel. I need a team who can, you put the thing over, who can and will step in to handle the overflow of work. Yeah, not just the overflow, but to handle what they're good at handling, right? It's one of the things that I've really learned leading our team of teammates over at Peaceful Warriors is figuring out where each person's natural innate ability and skill set fits in the best, right? So let's take Miss Nana, for example, right? Just as an example.
Hi, Nana, by the way.
Hi, Nana. She's on this video. So Miss Nana is very, very good at getting people of all ages, particularly the kids, to take things a little more seriously. She's very, very good at letting them have fun, but cutting through the silliness a little bit. So where is the best place for Nana? A place where, in the school, a place where she can work directly with the sillier children and help them learn how to focus better, because she has this aura about it, right? She has this aura that gets kids to pay better attention in a strange way. So that's why she's out there with the level 2 Tigers. Because with level 1 Tigers, they're a lot more structured in play. But the reason level 2 Tigers I feel like works best is because that's the class when they begin to get more freedom. And so that silliness tends to come out more, which is okay. You can let them be silly and have fun. But Nana's presence keeps them tempered, right? And she asks me all the time, isn't there something I should be doing right now? Should I be doing more? And I'm like, nope. Your presence is exactly what's needed on this floor. Just your presence. Yeah. That's what's needed here.
So like how Crocodile Dundee would do this and mesmerize the animals, that's what Nana does with the little ones. She just...
Let's take Mr. Moeller, for example. He's our level 2, level 3 instructor. Mr. Moeller's quite young, but he's always had this extreme ability to take things a step farther. He's always had this great ability to problem solve as well, to learn a piece of knowledge and then find 10 new ways to apply it. So that's exactly why he's our level 2 and 3 instructor, because he knows how to take the material and take the curriculum and make it apply to so many different situations for so many people. He's able to take it so many steps farther that he's able to reach those that are in the more intermediate advanced level and show them a beginner thing they learned as beginners and show them 10 different ways to use it and 10 different situations to use it. So that's why he's there. So yeah, the idea is not just about having, the team that can handle the overflow, but having a team that has a particular skill set.
Yeah.
To quote the movie, have a particular skill set. And finding the place that they are both happy and that uses their skill set to the highest level that it can be used. It's not a lot. When I first started having, I guess, the staff, I thought of it as, okay, it's to lighten the workload for myself. But then I realized that's a self-defeating mindset. It took me about a year to realize that that's a self-defeating mindset. it actually put me in depression. It put me into a pretty bad place of wondering what my worth was and where I fit into things anymore. And then I realized it's not about that. It's not about taking the workload off of me. It's about freeing up my time to put my attention to the things they can't. So, for example,
the things that you are good at, that
or the things
that
that you guys won't have time to,
Yeah.
right? So there always has to be that one person. Me and Ms. Rose talked about this. When it comes to a team, there always has to be that one person who is able to step back and watch the whole thing, so that they can see the bigger picture of how each of the pieces is working together with each other. And that way they can then go in and talk to each piece, each person in the staff, each class, and look at the curriculum and figure out where we need to bridge the gap and how we can bridge the gap between the several different things. Because you can have the best team in the world and have them in the best positions in the world and even have them good at working together, but unless you have that person that can step back and look at the big picture to make adjustments as it goes, then you're still going to plateau yourself and only go so far. And then I realized it wasn't about taking workload off of me. It was about being able to put me into a different type of workload that the team also needs, right? And for me, that was stepping back and helping everyone coordinate with each other a little bit better, because, I mean, each person every day has to put so much thought into what they're doing throughout that day, into what they're doing for that class, into what they're doing for each student, into what they're doing with their assistants, and they have less time to put into the curriculum itself, or how they're coordinating with the other floor or the other instructors and things like that. And that's a place where I step in, right, to help things coordinate and keep things moving in a greased way. And then I also choose to do other things that I enjoy with my time. I love making. Some of y'all make fun of me, and I get some hater stuff from time to time, but I love making the goofy ad videos. Like, it's one of my favorite things, and I kind of like the hate sometimes. Like, I get a little frustrated by it, and then I laugh it off, and I kind of like it. It's a guilty pleasure. Let's call it a guilty pleasure.
Okay.
I like doing the advertising. I like studying that stuff. I like studying psychology, which allows me to go through and make tweaks to the curriculum and pass those down the system as well, right? I like working the budgets and money. I like the logic of that. I like trying to figure out exactly how much money we have so that I can figure out how much money we can spend on the community, how much money we can donate to other sports, how much money we can put on getting food to people who need it, how much money we can put into bringing in new students who can't afford it, and things along those lines, right? So I have a different thing I focus on every day, and that I've realized it's not about building a team that can do it without me. It's about building a team that has all the skills necessary for each specialized part, right? That's what it's really about. So it's about coordination. It's about not being right. This is why every big decision we do is this. Now, sometimes I'll have an idea and I'll run through it and I'm like, guys, we're just going to do this. But most of the time I bring everyone together and I say, hey, look, I was thinking this. This is why I was thinking it. What do you guys think? Does anyone have any better ideas? I let everybody have a say. There's been times, plenty of times, that I thought I had a good idea and I wanted to back it, but it was downvoted. It was just outvoted by the rest of the staff. And I have to have patience with and accept the wisdom of the team as a whole, right? And understand that I'm the person that trained each of these people to be part of the team. Some of them were trained by other parts of the team as well. But to understand that we put them, they're in their positions for a reason. And so them being able to have a say, if I think an idea is good, but the majority of the staff doesn't think so or doesn't want to do it, I have to step back and I have to let go of my ego and I have to understand that maybe they're right because they have as much, if not more, wisdom on the ground than I do. So they're going to have a better idea on what ideas are workable and what ideas are not. That's why I'm so big on honestly, our business is run a little bit like a democracy. I'm so big on everybody getting a say in what we do and a vote and how it goes. So this all comes back to coordination and avoiding conflict, right? We talked about conflict being the direct resistance of things. That's when we get into the physical stuff in martial arts, that's the last ditch effort. That's when all other martial arts have broken down and it's headed to the physical fight. But even in that, the goal is to work with the movements, not against them. But before that is where real martial arts shines. And it's in using coordination to not have to have the conflict. It's in the ability of taking, maybe just an example, maybe Miss Rose has an idea and her ego's attached to it, she wants to be right.
Which
right?
may or may not happen.
I could just sit here and tell her she's not right and tell her she's wrong and this, that, and the other, but that's going to cause conflict. I'm directly resisting her ego, her idea. Instead, I could discuss with her the merits and pros and cons of the idea and talk about why I think it would work, but also why I think it wouldn't, and lead the conversation to allow her to make the decision that maybe her idea wasn't as great as she first thought it was. Because I can tell her idea is not great, but she's going to resist that because of her ego. We are all wired that way. But if I can have a discussion with her that convinces her that her idea is not that great, and I don't have to convince her, a discussion that allows her to convince herself, oh, maybe there was this part I didn't think through all that well. But now I'm using coordination to end a conflict before there was ever a conflict. This is the biggest prize of martial arts. This is true mastery, right? The tools to defend yourself, but the tools to not have to.
Yeah.
The tools to not have to.
Okay.
It takes a level of self-control, a level of awareness, and a level of detachment from your ego that most people never attain in their lifetime.
Yep. Remember, it's okay to be in love with an idea, but you don't have to be married to it.
No.
So there's no point in being so bent on an idea that you lose yourself to the idea.
I love the TV show Supernatural. You think that's all I watch, though? Am I only going to watch that show for the rest of my life? Am I just going to watch it constantly? No. I've already watched them all a few times over the years. But the point is, I'm not going to watch it all the time, right? I don't have to marry myself to that idea just because it's something I enjoy. Doesn't mean it has to be something that I do all the time, right?
Yep.
So you got anything else to add to this, Ms. Rose? To be or not to be? That is the question. Do you want to be right, or do you want to find the best solution? Do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? Up your problem-solving skills, and you'll get there, right? Right? Do you want to? And the thing is you can be right and still use your coordination to convince others of your idea and avoid conflict. That is actually, something else that's taught in political sciences. Using your ideas to let others convince themselves that you're right, instead of just saying, I have the best ideas. Many of the best people in politics, is what they do. Yep. They convince people to convince themselves that the idea is good.
And the thing is that I've learned, I have learned and am continuing to work on through the years, is that I don't have to like the best idea.
No.
It doesn't have to be my favorite idea.
But you can still weigh it out and recognize that it might be the best idea.
Yeah, like this isn't my favorite thing, but I also see in the long run this is going to be the thing that's the best way to do it.
Or sometimes there's two ideas that having trouble deciding between, and maybe you like one more than the other, but maybe the team votes the other one. Well, that's okay. They both have the same merits, and you have to understand that maybe just because I like this one doesn't mean we can't try this one. And you know what? If 3 weeks down the road, it turns out this seems to be a mistake, we've lost a couple students, we didn't do right by somebody, bam, let's go back to the first idea. Yep. It's not the end of the world. Nope. Making a decision is not the end of the world.
Nope, not at all.
All right, so that's our newest Teammate Talks episode. Remember, you can check out our podcast anywhere you get your podcast by searching hashtag Teammate Talks. And I want to say thank you to everybody that subscribed. I mean, it's pretty cool. We're a little over a month over, and we already have over 60 subscribers across all the channels, which I know on a nationwide stage that doesn't seem like much, but the average podcast nationwide only has 100 subscribers, and that's usually, they've been going for years. This is in our first month and a half, we've reached 60 subscribers nationwide. I feel like that's pretty cool.
I think it is too.
I think it's really, really cool. I don't know what you guys like about hearing us talk about stuff, but I really appreciate all the support and all the likes and comments and shares on our posts and all of our social media pages recently. You can find us on TikTok at Peace Warriors OK. You can find us on Instagram at Peace Warriors MA. You can find us obviously on Facebook as well. And
YouTube podcasts.
YouTube. You can find us on YouTube, Amazon. Yeah, well, I'm not talking about podcasts. I'm just talking about where you can find our social medias. And I've started this new thing of showing you guys. I want to show you guys just how grateful we are for all that support. So you might have noticed, if you follow any of our social medias, how we've begun occasionally tagging and calling out somebody in a comment and saying that we've noticed that they've been commenting on our things. We've noticed that they've been interacting with our things and how much we appreciate it. I want to show everybody exactly how much we appreciate all of that help, because a small business like ours, that's our only leverage in this world, in business. Our only leverage is our reach on the internet, which is directly related to how many people decide to react, comment, or share on our material or listen to our podcasts and things like that. So we really appreciate and very, very, very grateful for all of that, because we could not be doing this without you. I've seen so many comments pop up recently of, awesome, I don't want to say the word reviews, I guess, or awesome stories of how people have experienced our classes. And I love hearing those. I love hearing those because I don't get to spend as much time on the beginner floor anymore. Our students know that. I occasionally pop in over there just to watch for a few minutes, and I might even give a little speech here and there. But I end up having to spend the majority of my time on the other floor, making sure everything's straight there. The beginner floor, we're grateful to have had. It's staffed with most of our longest time teammates, longest time employees, with the exception of Nana, who helps keep the back floor stable for us. And so, I don't have to keep as close of an eye on it. You guys do a wonderful job. Miss Rose and her team does a wonderful job, and they've been at this for a really, really long time. And they each have different personalities and different personality traits that really bring a lot to the floor and give a lot to the kids. We're still building that on the back floor, but I think we've got people coming into the wings that are very, very
capable.
good for this. Very, very good for our students. So. All right. Anything else you wanted to add about coordination?
No, sir.
All right. Till we see you guys again, be the best teammates you can be, and
Be
be the best at being you. We almost didn't coordinate that very well.
Almost.